Let's start with something a little different today. Over the last few weeks, I started getting emails like this one that I'm putting up on the screen saying, David, now that Joe Rogan has been proven right about the vaccines, now that Russell Brand and Kim Iverson have been proven right about the vaccines and you were wrong, are you going to apologize? Are you going to issue a retraction or a traction for Howard Stern fans to what you said? Now, initially, I had no idea what these people were talking about. But indeed, there are a whole bunch of clips out there from people like Jimmy Dore, a video called Joe Rogan Proven Right About Vaccines and Myocarditis. Russell Brand did a video, Myocarditis and Matt Hancock, the Great COVID Swindle. A woman named Kim Iverson, who I guess only does vaccine content now. When I looked at her channel, it's like just months of only vaccine stuff. She did a video, Why Florida Halts COVID mRNA for Men 18 to 39. And then she also did a video in August called Massive Study Proves Men Under 40 Have a Higher Risk of Myocarditis Post-Vaccination. So they are claiming that they have been vindicated. And some of my viewers are writing to me and saying, David, all of these people have been vindicated and you were wrong. So let's see if we can talk this through. The first question is, what they believe is vindication is they say they are right to be skeptical and reluctant about the COVID vaccine because of myocarditis, and that has now been vindicated. Now, the first part of this that's sort of strange is that all of these videos came out in early to mid-November and one in August that I talked about. And yet the study that they are all talking about was published in April of this year. That's almost 8 months ago. That's sort of strange, right? I mean, the study is published 8 months ago, and they all talk about it within a few days of each other in November. That should at least raise a question. And it should also make us wonder, if all of these videos were produced in November, but they're talking about an April study, is there any other study data that came out between April and November that they excluded from their videos? Well, we're going to figure that out. But let's start with the study from April. The big takeaway from the April study is that men under the age of 40 have a higher risk of myocarditis post-vaccination compared to those who have not been vaccinated. Now, the study actually says in it, quote, further long-term studies will be needed to estimate the incidence of pericarditis and myocarditis in patients diagnosed with COVID. This is critical. It's not new information that there is a small risk of pericarditis and myocarditis, particularly to younger men, from the mRNA COVID vaccines. We knew that. It was a known risk, very rare, but a known risk. So that part isn't actually news. But what these folks want to imply, and some of them are straight up saying, is that the risk of pericarditis and myocarditis from COVID is lower than that from the vaccine. In other words, the vaccine is more dangerous than COVID. The study they are citing specifically doesn't say that. It says you've got to study that in order to figure out what is the incidence of pericarditis and myocarditis in people who get COVID. That's number one. So what they are implying, the study doesn't actually say. Secondly, no one claimed the vaccine had no risks. Nobody claimed there were. We all talked about the side effects. This specific risk was known and it was quantified, and it's really rare. So pretending that learning that is newsworthy also is dishonest. Now, the more you delve into the data, and again, they're saying, here's a study from April. There are newer studies, which we will get to, but they want to focus on this study from April. The more you delve into the data, the less stunning and shocking and surprising that the data is. An article from the American College of Cardiology called Which COVID Vaccine You Get Can Impact Myocarditis Risk comments on the study and clarifies that, quote, incidence of myocarditis is 2 to 3-fold higher after the second dose of the Moderna vaccine when compared to the Pfizer vaccine. However, overall cases of heart inflammation with either vaccine are very rare. This is super important because, again, the studies from April, we already knew this. We already knew there's a slightly higher risk of myocarditis from the vaccine. It's slightly higher from the Moderna than the Pfizer vaccine. But the super important part is, you know how sometimes you hear these claims, health claims, and I'm making this one up. This is an imaginary health claim, but it'll go something like this. Eating persimmon doubles your risk of spontaneous blindness. This is a joke, okay? We're making this up. Eating persimmon doubles your risk of spontaneous blindness. And then you find out the risk of spontaneous blindness in the general population is 0.01%. And the people who ate persimmon went randomly blind twice as frequently, 0.02% of the time, right? Is that significant? Is that something that you would alter your behavior around, particularly if eating persimmon had other health benefits? That's an important analogy to what is being talked about here. Now, many doctors, including Guy Whitberg, who's an MD and an MPH, he's a cardiologist at the Rabin Medical Center in Israel. He said, this information suggests that if you have any kind of underlying cardiovascular disease, get the Pfizer vaccine instead of the Moderna. That's a doctor's takeaway from this study. That's the takeaway. Now to go further, many other studies don't even find that myocarditis is more prevalent in those that take a vaccine versus who don't take a vaccine. So they're talking in November about an April study. There are newer studies that don't replicate this result. In August of 2022, this August, right? I mean, 3 months ago, the American Heart Association published a study reporting that, quote, the risk of myocarditis is greater after a COVID infection than after COVID vaccination and remains modest after sequential doses of the booster. However, the risk of myocarditis after vaccination is higher in younger men, particularly after a second dose of the mRNA vaccine. Information we knew mostly, and making it clear, it seems that COVID carries the higher risk. That happens to come from a study which was published in August of this year. Now, that is a 4-month newer study than the one Jimmy Dore and Russell Brand and Kim Iverson are looking at, meaning they chose or didn't care or didn't look to see, are there newer studies that conflict with the one from April that we're all titillated by? But we have something kind of even more interesting, and it's even newer information. An October study, so this is last month, from Penn State College, called, quote, myocarditis induced by COVID infection is substantially greater than the risk posed by vaccines. This study found myocarditis induced by COVID infections is worse than that myocarditis induced by the vaccines. Okay? That's from last month. And the other part of this is, even if you imagine that the risk of myocarditis is higher from the vaccine than it is from COVID, or rather that they are the same. If you say, okay, well, myocarditis is more likely when you get a vaccine, and it's more likely when you get COVID. Imagine that we grant both of those equally. The myocarditis associated with the vaccine is milder than the myocarditis associated with COVID. That's an important consideration. Dr. Nicola Klein, who's a vaccine expert at Kaiser Permanente, says, quote, vaccine-associated myocarditis is usually milder than the viral type. That's if the risk were equal, and many studies say that's not the case. Many studies find this, and we're putting another article up on the screen. Here is how some of the commentators I just mentioned reported on this. Jimmy Dore, when talking about this, said, before we give forgiveness for the people who were Nazis around COVID policy, who were pro-lockdown, pro-mandates, and they were 100% wrong on all that stuff, it's okay to be wrong about that stuff. What's not okay is to then demonize people who disagree with you on facts. Well, what are the facts? Choosing an 8-month-old study when there are newer studies, multiple newer studies that disagree? I don't know. So that's what's going on There's no retraction needed. There's no apology needed. Most of this study comes out with information that's not new. The parts that are more notable have already been contradicted by multiple newer studies. I have no horse in this race. I want the truth, and I want the healthiest public health situation for everybody. That's it. So that is the information as I know it. If you have additional information I should be considering or evaluating, by all means, send it to me. If you like these types of segments, make sure to subscribe on YouTube on the page for this video. Like if you're watching this video right now, hit subscribe. We see the analytics of which clips generate subscribers. And if this is of interest to the audience, we will absolutely do more of these. We're going to take a quick break and be right back. One of our sponsors is Allform, the easiest way to design your own custom sofa. I have one from Allform. Unlike other companies, Allform lets you choose the fabric, the size, the shape, color, even the color of the legs. I have not one, but two Allform sofas. I've had them for years. They look good as new. Definitely the most comfortable furniture I own. And it gets even cooler because Allform sofas are completely modular. You can buy a sofa, and if you move, you can adapt it to the new space by adding onto it or rearranging its elements. That is definitely not something you get from your typical sofa company. Allform has everything from 8-piece sectionals to love seats and armchairs. Everything is made in the USA using premium materials. Allform makes sure that assembly is really easy. I didn't even need any tools, which is good because I have very few tools. And you can keep the sofa for over 3 months and send it back free if you don't like it for a full refund. Right now, Allform is giving my audience 20% off all orders at allform.com/Pacman. The link is down below.